Hey there, it's Brian Goulet of the Goulet Pen Company and InkNouveau.com. I'm here to do a review of the entire Rohrer and Klingner ink brand. Now there's 18 colors within the brand, and rather than shoot a video as I was doing each review and have it be 18 different videos, which would be kind of long and drawn out, I thought I could just go ahead and cover the whole thing, because what I did is I did all the reviews up and then I posted them on Ink Nouveau kind of throughout the month of January. Reason being because January of 2012 was the month that we did ink drop of New Year, New Inks. And we chose the entire brand of Rohrer and Klingner to represent those new inks. So what we did is we kind of put, random selection, 5 samples, just like we do with every ink drop, but it was randomly selected among the brand. And so that way the whole brand was kind of covered throughout the entire ink drop community. But as far as my own reviews, I was posting them, just as written reviews with pictures on Ink Nouveau. So rather than make it all drawn out in the videos, I'm going to cover it all here in one fell swoop. So it may be a little long, but at least you'll get it all here. This is Rohrer and Klingner. This is the bottle that you see. It actually, before I started carrying the ink, I didn't know that these were glass bottles. I thought they were plastic, but they are definitely glass. So anyway, they don't come in any kind of box, and just about everything on here is written in German. But it does say a little bit. It says, for fountain pens, steel nib pens, dip pens, and individual writing utensils for calligraphy. So that's about the only English. And it says made in Germany. So there you go. But anyway, Rohrer and Klingner is a German brand. It's got a lot of nice colors and some nice stuff. So I'm going to take you through each color in each of my reviews as I did them. So let's do it. Alright, this is going to be a nice blitz of all the 18 Rohrer and Klingner colors. I'm just going to take you through each one as I reviewed them. The first one, I'm going to start in alphabetical order too, by the way. First one I'm going to start off with is Alt Bordeaux. This is a nice wine, a burgundy color. It's got a strong purple hue to it. Dry time is a little long, 30 plus seconds. I did all these reviews on Rhodia paper, 80 gram dot pad paper. So expect that the dry times are going to be a little bit longer on this paper than most others. But Rhodia is very consistent, and it's very common in the fountain pen community. That's why I standardize on this paper. The drip test over here, this is to test the water resistance. I basically, after I write it, a couple of minutes of drying, I just take a couple of drops of water and put it on there, let it sit for about 30 seconds, and then wipe it up. It's to really emulate if it's going to be a scenario like real life. Like say you're writing something in a journal, you're drinking coffee, you spill a couple of drops on the page, you go to wipe it off. Is your writing going to survive or not? So this one, water resistance is not the best. Actually, I'll go ahead and spoiler alert, the water resistance is not great on most of the Rohrer and Klingner brand, except for the iron galls, which I'll get to in a second. Dry time's a little long, water resistance is low, but I can also kind of make a blanket statement that the Rohrer and Klingner inks are incredibly easy to clean out of your pen. So kind of a double-edged sword there. Easy to clean, not so water resistant on paper. So there you go. Everything else is kind of middle of the road for Alt Bordeaux, but it is a really nice wine color. Next we have Alt Goldgrün. This is a very interesting color. There's nothing else quite like it. I carry about 600 different ink colors, and I couldn't find just about anything to match Alt Goldgrün. Really unique color. High shading, dry time's a little long, water resistance is practically nothing. You can see it all but disappeared with the water test. But if you want this particular shade of olive green and you want high shading with a lot of color variation while you write, Alt Goldgrün is the way to go. Blob Permanent. This is a name that's kind of deceiving. You would think it's a permanent blue, but it's really not permanent. I think the reason it's called Blob Permanent is because it emulates the colors that a lot of permanent blues are. I don't know exactly the whole backstory, but anyway, it's not a waterproof blue. Water resistance is pretty poor, but the dry time is relatively good, about 15 seconds on this Rhodia paper. Shading is middle of the road, flow is pretty average. Okay, next we go on to Blue Mare. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say these names are in German, and I'm not going to say the proper names because I don't speak German. I will do my best, but it's going to be Americanized, whatever it appears to be. So, dry time is pretty good, 15 seconds, on the faster end of the Rohrer and Klingner. Level saturation is pretty average. This is a nice turquoise color, not a lot of green to it, very solid blue turquoise. Water resistance is practically non-existent. It all but disappeared as well. But easy to clean, high shading, very, very nice, pleasant color. Cassia is next. This is a very vibrant purple. And the coolest thing about this, there's two really cool things. One is that when I did the drip test, the purple goes away, but this kind of hot pink stays behind. So if you're into watercolor washing or anything like that, this one might be a cool one to play around with. Another cool thing is if you do calligraphy stuff and you write really wet. When I did my swab, and by the way that these swabs work is I do one swab all the way across at the number 2. Once it's dry, I do another swab, and at 3 I do a third swab to show how the color can change when it's really saturated. The thing that I want to point out to you, I don't know if you can see this in the video. We'll see how we can go here. But it's got this green, there you go, you can see it. It's got this kind of greenish stuff around the edges when you get it really, really wet. So if you're doing some intense calligraphy stuff with really wet nibs, you can probably get some pretty neat stuff going on there with that shimmer. So anyway, the rest of everything is pretty average. For Nambu K, this is a very pinky red. I don't know if it's considered a red. It's really probably more of a pink. I would say it's more of a pink that leans towards red. But dry time is very fast, under 10 seconds, which on this rhodie paper, and as you can see from the other colors, this is pretty good for this range, for this brand of ink. Drip test, not so great, but that's to be expected. Color is fairly even, not a high degree of shading. Even when I dumped it on here, the color doesn't change a great deal. But anyway, there you go. That's for Nambu K. Next we have Helianthus. This is a kind of a golden yellow, a little bit, not very water resistant. Dry time is pretty good. It dries pretty fast. As you get wetter with this ink, it turns more of a gold color. So that's kind of nice. For most finer nibs and things like that, it may be a little light to be used every day, but if you're doing it for calligraphy and maybe watercolor stuff, it might work. So there you go. Koenigs Blau. This is a nice royal blue. This is kind of their staple royal blue within the brand. This also has kind of that same thing that Cassia had going on, where if you put it on really thick, it's got a little bit of a red shimmer to it. Not quite as much as some others that are really known for it, like Majestic Blue or maybe Private Reserve Electric DC Blue, but you can get it there if you really dump it on. Dry time is pretty average, 20 seconds. Drip test not so great, but you can see it doesn't completely disappear like some of the others. It does okay. Everything else is pretty average. Leipziger Schwarz. Okay, this is their black, but it's not a solid black. I would actually kind of put this in the dark blue-black category. The reason being because it, you know, when you kind of glance at it, yes, it looks black, but when you really get into it, you can actually see, especially up here where you're doing the smearing and stuff, it really is a bluish green kind of color. Really interesting. There's nothing else kind of like it. So I'm a big fan of this. It's interesting to use if you like to use a black that's not a pure black, but you like to have a black that has a little bit of color to it. You know, I think that's the reason a lot of people like things like Noodler's L. Lawrence. That's a black that has a lot of brown. It's kind of like a motor oil type color. But this is a black that leans bluish green. Really kind of cool. So anyway, that's Leipziger Schwarz. It's not a lot of shading. This is a very even color, and it writes very wet. Magenta is next. Magenta is not as vibrant as highlighter Roshizuku Yamabudo, but it's a similar hue. So if you like that color but want something maybe a little cheaper and you want something that isn't quite as bright, this is a good alternative. Drip test, not so great, but it dries pretty fast. The shading is pretty average and flow is pretty average. Nice usable dark purple, or sorry, pink, if you can call it that. All right, Mirinda. Mirinda is a nice color. It's a darker red, a lot of shading. You can see how much it changes color as I do the swabs here. And if you get really up on here, especially where I use the Lamy Steel Broad, you can see how much that's changing color even within the same word. So that's kind of the neat thing about this. It's a not incredibly dark red. Maybe like a diamine red dragon, not quite as vibrant, but Mirinda is still a pretty nice color if you like the red. Not very water resistant. Dry time is definitely on the longer side for this brand. But if you like high shading reds like this, that's the way to go. Salix. Now this is one of the 2 iron gall inks that are within Rohrer and Klingner. And Salix and the other one, Scabiosa, which is coming next, they're definitely the most popular Rohrer and Klingner colors. Reason being, because they're waterproof. Now, true iron gall is usually pretty acidic and can harm your pens. Now, this is a modern formulation of iron gall, and I have never heard of this causing any problems in pens. In fact, normally iron gall is quite a bear to clean as well, but this one cleans incredibly easy, just like all of the other Rohrer and Klingner inks. It's a fairly even color. It doesn't have a high degree of shading, but it does have some. Dry time is a little bit on the long side for this one, but it's a nice blue color, leans a little bit purple. Very popular color. Now Scabiosa, this is the other iron gall color. This one is, in my opinion, even nicer than Salix. Reason is because you still get that water resistance, but the dry time, look at how fast that dry time is. Barely 5 seconds it barely smeared, 10 seconds I got nothing. So very nice color, pleasant muted purple, great read back. If the color's too vibrant sometimes and you're writing a whole page, especially on bright white paper like this, it can really not hurt your eyes, but it can really stand out and tire your eyes after reading it for a while. But these muted dusty colors have great read back where if you're reading a whole page, it's just very pleasant. Very much like Diamond Damson or Carandash Storm, Jeroboam Poussière de Lune. This is very much in that color range. It's got a little bit more punch than Poussière de Lune, which is one of my all-time favorite colors. Dries very fast, very high shading, and water resistant. It's no wonder this one's so popular. Sepia is next. Now, some sepias, if you saw the post where I actually posted the similar colors to this, there's a lot of inks across different brands that are called sepia, but just about every single one of them looks completely different. It's pretty wild. So this one is very much of a gray-brown color. Dries very fast. Water resistance is better than most of the other ones, okay? I wouldn't call this low, it's like a medium water resistance. If you put some drips on there, you could actually still read it. Very easy to clean and a high degree of shading, kind of a neat color. Smaragd Groen, this is an emerald green. It's got a little bit of yellow to it. It's not very water resistant, but it does dry really fast. Shading is average, flow is pretty average. Solferino, this color is very vibrant. Pops, like punches you in the eyes. Very fast dry time, under 10 seconds. Big plus for this. On lesser paper, not lesser, but on more absorbent paper, it's going to dry even faster. Cool thing about this one is, I think if you were to use it in a watercolor wash scenario, it would look pretty cool because when it gets wet, it doesn't completely go away, but it does leave behind this hot pink. So I think you could get some neat color variation in there, and it flows pretty wet too. Vert de Gris. This is a really nice color. I like this a lot. It's a blue-black, very dark, has some good shading to it if you're using it in a really wet pen. Otherwise, it's pretty even color. Fast dry time, 15 seconds, about that. That's going to depend on the pen you use too. Water resistance, not so great. Pretty much goes away, but very easy to clean, and it writes really wet. It's just a very pleasant dark color. And last but not least, we have Verdura. This is a nice bright green, very grassy green color. Dry time is a little on the longer side, maybe pretty average, 20 seconds on this paper. Saturation is pretty medium, but it does shade really nicely, especially if you're using it with a wetter writing pen like that Broad. The dry time, or the water resistance is not so great, but then again, kind of come to expect that with Rohrer and Klingner. So anyway, that is the whole brand in one fell swoop. Hopefully this is able to help you out here. I hope you like my overview of Rohrer and Klingner. If you have any questions, you can always email me at brian@gouletpens.com. Thanks for watching, and write on.